Okay, we got to the optimizations for the client tier. The optimizations we apply in this tier are based on two simple principles. We have the client and the server. Since these machines are located in different geographical areas, we should reduce the number of requests from the client to the server and also the size of the response. So we can apply this principle in various areas. For example, when building APIs, we should aim to keep our DTOs lightweight. Now, if you're building a public API that many other applications will use, that's a different story. You may want to return a bit more data. But otherwise, if this API is internal and is used only by the front end of your application, avoid returning any unnecessary properties. Same principle can be applied to our JavaScript and CSS files. To reduce the number of HTTP requests, we combine them, and to reduce the response size, we compress the result. And that's where our bundles come into the picture. When we put our JavaScript and CSS files into these bundles, ASP.NET will combine and compress them at runtime. So just to refresh your memory, here in layout.cshtml, we have a reference to one of our bundles. And by the way, this is another optimization technique. We should put the scripts near the end of the body section, because sometimes it takes a bit of time to download these scripts, and to give the user a fast and smooth experience, we want to render all the markup first so the user can see something appearing on the page. If you put the scripts on the top, some of the browser's resources will be wasted to get these scripts before rendering the content. Now let's see a demo of bundling in action. So back in the browser, on the Movies page, I've got Chrome Developer Tools open, and I'm going to refresh. Now look at the Network tab. Here we can see all the requests sent from the client to the server. So totally we have 24 requests, and their total response size is about 80 kilobytes. We can filter this request. For example, let's take a look at JavaScript files. So totally we have 8 requests for JavaScript files. But hang on a sec, what happened to our bundle? All right, back in Visual Studio, in Solution Explorer, I'm going to open up web.config. Here under system.web, look, we have an element called compilation. Here we can configure the settings that ASP.NET Runtime will use to compile our application. And note that this is different from how we compile our application with Ctrl-Shift-B or by pressing Ctrl F5. When we build or compile our application, C# compiler gets our C# code and compiles it into an assembly. So we get a DLL in the bin folder. But when we run the application, ASP.NET Runtime has its own compilation process. Bundling our JavaScript and CSS files happens at this stage, at runtime. Now here you can see debug is set to true. We can either set it to false or just remove the attribute, because its default value is false. Save, back to the browser. I'm going to refresh. Okay, now we have only 2 requests for JavaScript files. We've got Modernizer, which is a different bundle. And here's our lib bundle. This parameter appended here as the query string is a hash that ASP.NET Runtime calculates based on the content of our JavaScript files. So if we change them, this hash also changes. And this prevents browsers from caching the request. Now let's have a look here. Look, there's no space in this code. So that's how minification works. ASP.NET Runtime gets rid of all the white spaces and also shortens the identifiers. So here we have N and T, which probably used to be called something else. Now back to our web.config. Technically, you should never touch this compilation element here. So let's revert it back. In Solution Explorer, look, we've got 2 files hanging off web.config. We've got web.debug.config and web.release.config. When we deploy our application in the release mode, this file will overwrite the settings in the parent web.config. Let's have a look. This file uses XSLT to transform the original XML. So we can see in system.web, for the compilation element, this transformation removes the debug attribute.